Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Tuesday evening. Another day where the Chargers have decided to graciously sign a player right before we are jumping on the show. Obviously, not right before; it's about lunchtime ish. But excited to dive into what the signing of Andre James, the former Raiders center, means for the Chargers going forward, and how that could also affect their draft needs, which is going to be the secondary part of our show. We're going to kind of circle back and talk about some how the free agency has kind of clarified what the draft needs are for this team. And joining me, as always, to do that is my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing very well. The thumbnail graveyard is growing by the day, but it's totally fine as long as they're signing players. And happy Daredevil Day to all who celebrate.
Yes, I will be watching that. Although March Madness does technically start tonight, so I might be watching some basketball. I can watch Daredevil after. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. Happy March Madness week to those who celebrate. Really excited about the ability to get in and watch some of those games this week. I don't follow college basketball nearly as much as I used to. But part of that is Utah has been horrible for the last few years. But I still do March Madness. I'm in like 7 bracket groups. It's just, part of the fun. I've done a bracket every single year since I was like 10 years old. It's a great time. So love March Madness. Happy March Madness time to all those who celebrate. If your team is in the tournament, I hope they do really well. Unless you are a BYU fan, then I hope you lose to VCU in the first round.
I've got a couple students who are BYU fans, and yeah, I think of you every time I make fun of them.
Yeah, one of my coworkers went to BYU, and we've become pretty close, and we try not to talk about the rivalry as much. But this year when BYU beat Utah in football for the first time in like a decade, it was not fun. He definitely was very vocal about it. So it was a good time. We'll get to some of these super chats later in the draft, but I have to give a shout out to Andrew here. He says that Tyler has mastered the art of the thumbnail manifestation, at least on Al Gaib. It really is true, man. We have like so many thumbnails from the last 2 weeks that have not been used because the Chargers have decided to sign a player, which we are, again, very grateful that has been the case. But the thumbnail exchanges has been really funny to watch.
Yeah, it has been fun, and it's very simple, so easy to change and put Andre James or Mike Williams or Mekhi Becton. Very easy, but I do appreciate the Chargers doing this for definitely some reason.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding. It's been fun. It's been fun. I'll take it.
Yeah, and great use of pop culture term here. Listen, Al Gaib. We watched Dune 2 again, like at home a couple weeks ago. Still holds up so great.
Yeah,
fantastic. The scores are amazing. I really wish that they had like waited a couple months, so that would have won more awards, because I do really feel like it would have done a lot better had it not been released in February or whatever. But yeah, love that show.
Yep.
I do also have to say, the returns of our efforts the last few weeks, shall we say, have been fantastic to see. We've increased subscribers. 3 of our most 6 watched shows in the entire existence of the YouTube channel have been over the last week or so. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for choosing us. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you are an OG of the show, thank you for sticking around, and thank you for continuing to watch and support the show. Your guys' support over the last couple of weeks, really over the last few years, obviously, has been truly amazing. Our Mekhi Becton show, which it's not even like a huge signing, like it's just like a Mekhi Becton show, is almost at 13,000 views. Our show from last week when the Chargers had signed Mike Williams, which again, it's a $6 million signing. It's doing great. It's almost at 15,000, which is already our most watched show ever. So thank you sincerely, all of your guys' support over the last few years, particularly over the last week or so. Just means a lot. It really does. Tyler and I probably would do this if our show was still not like super successful, but the fact that you guys like it and appreciate it so much really does mean a lot, that you take the time out of your day to continue to support the show. And sincerely, it's super cool to have built up this community, and it just makes it that much more rewarding. So thank you, truly, sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts for all of you, all the support you guys bring to the show. Just makes it more fun.
Yeah, it is. Not that it's why we do it, right? Because we did this. You look at our numbers from 5 years ago, and it definitely wasn't that. And we didn't have a countdown or a background, or even we didn't even know how to do a live stream. It didn't matter. We did it for the fun of it. But yeah, like 65,000 views just on YouTube just last week is not what we had a few years ago. That's for sure. The funny thing is, Dylan Cole's mentioning what were the other live streams? It was Keenan Allen, them trading Keenan Allen. It was Steven reacting to Taylor Heineke trade. Trade, and a day 3 draft live stream last year, which is so funny. But that day 3 draft stream was our highest viewed episode until this most recent one. And I think that really just does speak to some of the preparation that we do, that people bought into what we do and wanted to hear what we had to say about some of these late day 3 prospects as we live stream for like 4 or 5, whatever hours, because we do the work. At the end of the day, we do the work, for better or worse, right or wrong. The work is there, and I appreciate you guys sticking around, and thank you for not bailing after 7 minutes. And we still haven't talked about the title of anything that we were supposed to talk about today. Thank you for sticking around. We will get to it, but yes, I appreciate Steven leading with that, because I do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, like you said, we don't do this for the clicks and stuff like that, but you know, it means a lot that people like the work that we do bring to the table, and really excited for the future. So in case you were wondering, we are going to be live streaming on draft weekend. We had too much fun with it last year. You know, when they took Junior Colson, that was probably like one of my top 5 favorite GAC moments of all time. So hopefully we can get the Chargers to draft some more players we like. You know, last year we were extremely fortunate with the players that we liked getting drafted from the Chargers. Obviously we all liked Junior Colson, we all liked Ladd. I loved Cam Hart. Alex loved Kamani. We all obviously like Joe Alt, although we probably wanted, you know, Malik Neighbors a little bit. So last year worked out. The previous years, not so much in terms of the guys that we liked, although obviously, you know, we all liked Zion. That hasn't turned out great, but you know, I remember trying to convince ourselves into the JT Woods selection in Las Vegas, which was not a ton of fun. So this upcoming draft, hopefully we can get some more GAC guys that we like. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, we will be there. I thought about it the other day and how I'm going to order junk food like I always do and just sit here and just like soda or energy drinks, junk food. I'll probably like die on a live stream one day, eating all this crap, but like I'll die happy.
Yeah, 100%. So we obviously love the draft. We're draft nerds. I haven't watched a ton of prospects this year. I've really kind of focused specifically in on the Chargers' needs, which we'll get to here in a minute. Like I'm not watching a ton of safeties or linebackers, and obviously not watching quarterbacks. I've watched a couple offensive tackles who I think could be guard converts, but like I'm not really watching Armand Membu, so stuff like that. So we will have you covered for the Chargers specific needs, although not a ton of, you know, like I'm not going to get to 250 prospects like I did a couple of years ago, but you know, still going to grade a lot of players, and I think I'm up to like 78 as of last night.
We're on the same,
yeah,
so
we're on the same number. We're getting there.
Yeah. I know way too much about crap day 3 prospects. So man, you let me just like simmer for the first couple of days. Day 3, you want to know some garbage? Oh, tune in, baby.
Tyler has you covered for day 3 wide receiver talk. I don't know if I can bring myself to get to that particular group, but Tyler has you covered for sure.
If you want someone who runs forward and fast, I got a whole bunch of them to talk to you about. Oh, man.
I can't wait. I love the draft, so it's going to be a ton of fun. We will be there every single day of the draft, and hopefully you guys will be there to join us. All right, let's get to Andre James, and then we'll get to the draft needs. So we do not know specific details of the contract just quite yet. Based off of the reporting and how this has kind of been handling, I would expect this to be a 1-year contract. We'll see again, kind of the, you know, the amount here. But this is a guy who has a ton of previous starting experience, albeit for the Raiders. And I think primarily this is a indication to me of where the Chargers view their chances to gain a starting center. I don't know quite how this is going to affect Zion Johnson, which we can get into, but if you're the Chargers kind of zooming out on this particular center grouping, whether that's free agency or the draft, and you're looking at free agency, and there's a lot of guys who are not scheme fits. Like everybody wanted Drew Dalman, and I get that, not a scheme fit. Garrett Bradbury was cut, and people were like, sign this guy. He's the furthest thing possible from a scheme fit for the Chargers. So if you're them, I can definitely understand why you would look at it and go, hey, you know what? Let's bring Bradley Bozeman back. Let's sign a guy like Andre James. Maybe they draft somebody. Maybe they experiment with Zion Johnson. And let's see where we can find an edge here. And if Bozeman ends up being our best option, so be it. We know his game. We're comfortable with his game. We know what he means to the locker room, all that stuff. But we're just going to take a few bites at the apple to try and find an upgrade at center. And I think it's an indication that they have kind of self-scouted a bit, that they have looked at this position and trying to find creative outlets to upgrade at this position. And if they can get Andre James from 2023, this is a definitive upgrade. This is a guy who was, borderline top 10 in several metrics. His gap scheme run blocking grade was 75.5, and all the qualifiers, PFF grades, etc. I know people have an issue with that, but his gap scheme grade of 75.5 was a very high end. That's a borderline elite run blocking grade. And that was the 6th best in the league that season, again, in 2023. This is a guy who, from a true pass blocking set opportunity, had a 64.6 in 2023. Again, very, very close to high-end center play. His total pass blocking efficiency rating was 97.9. Generally speaking, if you're around 98, you're doing really, really good. So this is a bet on getting him back to the 2023 version of himself, when he really did look like a guy who could become one of those next top tier centers. The Raiders obviously had a ton of coaching turnover. Their offensive line coach left to the Giants. They changed head coaches. They changed offensive coordinators. Luke Getsy comes in, who's very deeply rooted into the Shanahan world, whereas Josh McDaniels and that group was very rooted in the power gap scheme world. And it just was not a fit for what Andre James, I think, in his skill set is. And then, like, culture and vibes and everything like that is so crucial for offensive line play, where if you're in an ecosystem where you know your coach is getting fired, the offensive coordinator's on the hot seat, then you're going to change offensive coordinators again. Your offensive line coach who you liked leaves. So much of that plays into what you can put out there on tape as a unit. And so Andre James not performing up to his previous level is not really that surprising. If the Chargers can get him back to 2023 and even 2022 version, this has the chance to be a tremendous return on investment, again, depending on what the cost here is. But this is a opportunity where they could potentially upgrade the center position for 2025. And if it goes well, maybe he sticks around for the next 2 or 3 years. Maybe he earns himself a 2-year contract, extension with the team. Maybe they bring him back and he kind of solidifies and stabilizes the position here. There's the chance that it doesn't work out. There's the chance that that who he was in 2024 is who he is as a player. But there's the chance that this works out tremendously well. So this isn't, again, very similarly to the Mekhi Becton signing, although I don't think he's that caliber of ceiling. This has the chance to go poorly, but if it hits, it can have the chance to bring a tremendous return on investment and potentially solidify this position. So I'm a fan. I think it makes a lot of sense. I talked about this move for, a couple of weeks after the Raiders decided to release him. And again, it's just another dart throw at the position. And if it hits, it's going to be a tremendous value for this team.
Yeah, for all the reasons you just mentioned, this is my favorite signing of free agency so far. Do I think he'll be the best player of the grouping when all said and done? Maybe not. I don't know. That could be Becton. That could be Najee Harris. We'll see. But in terms of the process and the reasons they signed him and what I'm guessing is going to be the value they get him for. Obviously, it doesn't count against the comp pick formula, though it doesn't really matter right now.
Yeah.
For all those reasons, I think this is my favorite signing because
Mm.
I was just nervous about the Bradley Bozeman. And initially, when we saw a multi-year deal of Bradley Bozeman, I was a bit panicked because what does a multi-year deal for Bradley Bozeman look like? And for them to now have a legitimate option at center who can at least compete with Bradley Bozeman, I think is fantastic. They walked into last year just like Bradley Bozeman has the job, and we'll figure out center in season somehow. And they never did. And even their starter, they didn't figure out. So them going, okay, that didn't really work last year. We'll bring Bradley Bozeman back, who can play guard, but we're also going to go out, like you said, and get a veteran center who can compete. Best man wins. The guy that starts in week 1 is the best available. That's awesome. And I really, really appreciate that ahead of this draft class, because you've done a lot more homework on this group than I have, so you can speak to it more so than I can. But anyone you ask, there's generally not anybody who says this is a great center class.
Right.
Even if you think it's a great center class, your options are limited when you're more like gap scheme focused. So you might like a couple of players, but they're more zone guys. So when it comes down to it, the Chargers didn't have a ton of options. And now Zabel, who maybe was an option, he's going early in Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts. He's a potential top 20 player. So your options are dwindling. So the Chargers going out and saying, hey, we're going to take care of at least the floor of what we can do this year at center. Taking care of that right now is awesome. So the worst thing that happens, like Bradley Bozeman's a backup. He's a potential swing backup on the interior. At minimum, he's your backup center. All of this, I really, really do like. This is, again, my favorite signing so far. Is it a great home run signing? Like, please don't, crop this out in a year when he's like fine. Like, oh, Tyler loved this signing because he thinks it's gonna be so good. I do love this signing, but it's just for what it is, relative to what it is. And I think that this process is great. I love the idea. I'm very curious what the numbers are for the contract.
Yeah,
Bozeman got, I'm assuming, a bigger contract in terms of the up to. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that part has yet to be determined. But I think the Chargers landing in this place, after how frustrated we were last season when they basically just handed the backup center position. Jorge really wants you to do a handstand tonight.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not quite yet. But after last season where they essentially handed the backup role to Brendan Hymas, and then after like 3 weeks, we're like, Sam Mustipher's our guy. This, even if Andre James is not the starter, the fact that this guy is your potential backup center, it's an improvement of depth, worst case scenario. Andre James did play tackle in college, both left tackle and right tackle. Granted, this was a while ago.
Yeah.
So, but potentially they have looked at him and say, hey, you know what? Like, you've played interior. Maybe let's try you at guard in training camp. Let's try Bradley Bozeman at guard. Bozeman played guard to start his career in Baltimore. So there's, 2,000 snaps of guard tape that they have that they can look at. I wouldn't say it went like particularly well, but his pass blocking efficiency rating in 2020 was 98, which is pretty good. So I think the Chargers are going to be a little bit more creative this year, which is, I think, a proper solution to the problem. We know that Mekhi Becton, we don't know, but we're pretty sure Mekhi Becton is going to start at right guard. And then, if you still want to experiment with Zion Johnson at center, you can still do that. You can figure out what you want to do at left guard and just bring in, 4 or 5 guys and figure out your 2 positions who are the best players there. I think that's the proper way to do this. If you're not going to invest elite resources into the position, now granted, they could still take a guard at left at 22 who they could start right away, and then you figure out center with the other 3. But if they just want to go hyper flexibility, you can take one of these guys we're going to talk about here in a little bit who has that position flexibility and have your 5 guys for 2 spots, and they figure it out. Essentially, this is the Chargers taking the pool stick in the Dark Knight. You throw it in the middle and you say, you 5, figure it out.
Kill each other.
Just kill each other. Not literally, because we still need you to be backups for this team. But I'm a fan of this. I'm a fan of this decision making. I think this this front office has looked at what kind of weaknesses they had last year, and we're just going to give the coaching staff as many potential chances to figure it out. So we'll see what happens here. I think Andre James, who has played exclusively center in his career, to me, if you get the 2023 version, he's your best path forward to a quality starting center. And then you could figure it out at left guard. Bradley Bozeman is your backup. Trey Pipkins is your backup. Quietly, this has the chance to be a very good offensive line ecosystem if James can hit to his 2023 version. So I'm very excited about this. I didn't think they would get to this point after bringing back Bozeman and after the Zion Johnson stuff. I kind of figured if they were going to sign another veteran, it would be a left guard. But I think this shows, man, like this front office is aware. They're going to scout. They're going to try to make improvements. And they've shown that, right? But this is another way where the previous regime brings back Bradley Bozeman, and that's it. You know, we're going to have 3 potential options to start at center this year. And I do really think that that is the best way possible forward at that position.
I agree. Do you think, I think when spring OTAs roll around, Bozeman is the starter at first at center? Do you think that's how they would?
Yeah.
And that's
because
James
he's the guy.
10 million for some reason.
Right. If James's contract is significant, then he would be the guy. But I think, you know, Bradley Bozeman is the guy, you know, he's a leader in the room. I think he would be like the first guy to trot out there. So if that is the case, and Daniel Popper and Chris Rimmon and these guys tweet out Bradley Bozeman's the first team center, don't freak out. I think they are going to have a legitimate competition. They would not be signing a guy like Andre James if they were not going to have a legit competition. So just be patient, let things play out. I'm excited to see how this turns out, man, because again, if you have 3 guys competing for one spot, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that is nice. And I'm just going to put to bed the Zion thing. I do not like it. If I didn't think that was happening before, I think he's a left guard, and that's just how it's going to be this year, guys.
No, I totally get it. I think Zion is going to have to figure out a way to earn his stripes. And if you're him, maybe you go to the team and you say, hey, like I played center at the Senior Bowl. I've taken snaps before. Let me show what I can do. If you're Zion, that makes a lot of sense. And if you're the team, you know, again, it's just like a worthwhile bet. But at the same time, 3 guys competing for starting center is a lot. It's very unorthodox, but maybe that's where we're at.
This is the question, man. I'm not watching Raiders offensive all 22. I get that. Can Andre James reach block? Want Becton to get to the second level?
Yeah, Becton can definitely reach block. I can tell you that. You know, I watched 4 games of Mekhi Becton's 2023 tape, jumped around, watched him against some elite defensive tackles, watched him against some games where he graded out really well. I watched his worst run blocking performance, which I still thought was great. Mekhi Becton, for weighing 360 pounds, moves like he weighs 300 pounds. Like he's truly a freak athlete. So that part should get Chargers fans really excited about. You know, Trey Pipkins is a good athlete at guard, a good athlete at tackle. Mekhi Becton next to Joe Alt is a freakazoid kind of right side. Andre James, I'm going to go back and watch, but you know, my recollection of him against the Chargers has been pretty positive. Yeah. He's definitely a better athlete than Bradley Bozeman. I could say that for sure. I wonder what his RAS was.
It is. I'm glad you asked. It's
you have it up? Nice.
Yeah, it's 6.36. Sorry, 6.36 if you run him at guard. I was having some fun earlier. And at center, I believe it was, here we go, 5.85.
So not great, but I believe Bradley Bozeman's was like 1.
Like 11 or 1, sorry, 11th percentile, yeah.
Yeah. So you have some different flavors there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zion as a center, I think would be pretty close to a 10, because he was pretty close to a 10 as a guard.
As is, yeah. Yeah, so definitely a bump up there, which is good because they needed that. And for Andre James, this RAS website's gonna kill my.
It's so slow.
Internet.
It's so slow. Dylan Cole says Bradley Bozeman's RAS was 1.19. Yeah, not a right there.
Yeah. So James 5.85, and he's just like okay to good in most categories,
which is an upgrade,
which is not poor.
Yeah.
So
Nicholas says correction. Previous regime signs Fries to $100 million plus, probably. Which, hey man, I don't think that would have been the worst thing in the world. But
Tom Telesco would have signed Aaron Banks, former Notre Dame.
Yes, actually, good point.
To $100 million.
Yeah, that contract, man. They're paying him like, I think it's like $45 million in the first 2 years. Crazy contract. Crazy contract.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers could have 2 upgrades on their offensive line for $9 million cap hit this year.
Yeah. So again, the Chargers have, like, people have to hit, right? Like if Andre James hits, they hit on a left guard, in the draft to overtake Zion, or maybe Zion has his career season. I think that probably is less likely. But you have Slater, you have a rookie left guard, you have Andre James, and then you have Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt, and then your guys who were all starters last year are potentially backups, plus Jamari Sawyer. That's a really good room, man. I'm excited about this. I think the Chargers are approaching this in a really smart way.
I agree. I also have no idea what's happening in our live chat right now.
What? Mighty, go touch grass, please.
You guys have some interesting questions and interesting predictions. Like if you draft a Skadibo in the second round. A lot of interesting questions today.
Okay, Tyler, any other thoughts about Andre James or the rest of that the movement today?
No, I'm stoked for it. Excited to see an actual competition on the interior this time. So should be fun.
Yeah, 100%. All right, before we get to these draft needs, I have to tell you guys about our friends over at PrizePicks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. I told you earlier, I'm already all in on March Madness brackets. I will be all in on the PrizePicks selections as well. Gives you double the fun, gives you more opportunities to help out the wallet a little bit. It's springtime, taxes are coming up. Maybe you're paying a big tax outlet. So let's get you into PrizePicks. Let's help you get some extra money into the system in the springtime. You can go to our link, prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout. And if you do use our link, it does actually help support the show as well. Again, best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. We've had a ton of fun using it. Everybody that I talk to that uses PrizePick says phenomenal things about it. So please go check it out. prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout. Okay, we are going to shift gears here, and we're going to talk about some draft needs. Again, the Chargers have done a pretty good job of draft proofing, stealing a phrase from Daniel Popper there. Some of their position groups, obviously, we just talked about center, but there are some very clear needs. And so we're going to be talking about those particular needs today as we continue to ramp up towards our draft coverage. So let's dive into the first one here, which we are going to me, this is the most glaring hole on the roster, which is pass catching tight end.
Yeah, the Chargers desperately needed a pass catching tight end and did want to specify that for sure. Stone Smart now departs to the Jets. So there's no like, maybe a guy waiting in the wings. It's 2 guys that block, and then Will Dissly maxed out to whatever he did last year. But the Chargers need more, and Chargers fans want more. And the issue is you go into the draft, it's very unlikely you're going to find a guy who's going to hit immediately and contribute that much in your offense. So hopefully they do. But Dissly, Smart last year combined for 705 receiving yards. Again, Smart is now gone. But this is it with a head coach and an offensive coordinator who generally have been able to lean into their tight ends. I mean, Mark Andrews averaging over 1,000 yards, Vernon Davis averaging over 700 yards per season with Greg Roman. This offense needs that legit tight end one. And, if they're going to try to make Quentin Johnston work this year, Mike Williams is 50-50 if he's going to be on the field the whole year. McConkey you feel good about, but he's really the only guy you can count on. Finding somebody dependable in the middle at tight end who will fit exactly what Greg Roman wants. I can have all my questions about how they could use a receiver on the outside and the overall passing game, but I at least know Greg Roman can make it work with a good pass catching tight end, and they almost made it really work with Will Dissly at tight end. Again, all respect to him, but that's not his thing.
Yeah.
So the Chargers definitely need to find someone in the draft, and there are options that exist, but you will find that this draft class is not as lovely, both in terms of production or athleticism or both, than previous classes. I was just looking at the RAS website, and last year had 12 tight ends with an 80th percentile RAS or higher, and this year it's just 6.
Yeah.
And granted, I think we're still waiting on some testing, so that could change.
Sure.
But still, it's just not that class. So round 1, you're looking at your Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland, who at this point, with the way, Daniel Jeremiah had McMillan falling to 22 and Burden falling out of the first round altogether. Granted, Matthew Golden went like top 18 or something like that, top 15 in his mock. But there is a world where some teams view these 2 tight ends as the first and second best overall pass catchers in this class. So I don't think that Colson Loveland will be there for the Chargers. Warren seems like he's going to be gone. But with this pass catching class and these receivers, if how the media is feeling holds up, these guys might be gone because there might just be the safest, best options there. So they're gone potentially, but if one falls, awesome. Mason Taylor, who I'll let Steven talk about because he's his favorite player. He's an option in round 2. I do not like him in the second round personally. I think Daniel Jeremiah, someone said he had Mason Taylor as 37th overall on his big board. Daniel Jeremiah and I sometimes like see eye to eye on some players. Said some good things about Trey Harris. Last year, we were on the same page with McLaughlin. I don't know, the Arizona tight end.
Yeah.
I'm not on the same page right now with Mason Taylor. Elijah Arroyo, I understand. I get it. He's very intriguing. Round 3 is your Gunnar Helm, Harold Fannin Jr., Terrence Ferguson, etc. Again, it's not a really exciting class. We'll get into some pages later that have 20 names you can take in the first 100 picks, and they're all legitimately good. But they need to find somebody. My question is if they even really can.
Yeah. Real quickly, I've seen this going around. Matt brought this up in the chat, but others have posted this too. So Pro Football Talk included this 3 years, $24 million for Andre James. That was his contract extension that he signed with the Raiders. So we do not have anything official on his new contract with the Chargers. I would be absolutely stunned if it were a 3-year, $24 million contract based off of how last year went and he was cut. So again, nothing official. I expect this to be a 1-year deal, maybe like up to $6-7 million kind of deal, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think circling back to this tight end class, so I have included here the consensus rate. This is from the Athletics consensus board. So there's a few different places that do consensus rankings. Mock Draft Database is the other one that's very popular and free. That's the MDD that you'll see on a couple of these guys. But most of these rankings are from the Athletic. So they have Tyler Warren extremely high, Colson Loveland as well at 11. Obviously, the Chargers probably most likely are not getting the chance to take Tyler Warren. Do they have the chance to get Colson Loveland? Maybe. His range, I think, starts as early as like 9 or 10. I've seen him go that early. I've seen him go after the Chargers, which I think is kind of crazy to me. But 11th on the consensus board is very, very high. So to me, this is a very tricky draft proposition for the Chargers, because those two are potentially well off the board at pick 22. There's a chance that Mason Taylor and Elijah Arroyo are well off the board at pick 55. And I would be a little concerned about either of them at pick 55, to be completely honest with you. So this is why I think we have been such fans of signing Juwan Johnson or trading for Mark Andrews or Dallas Goedert. Maybe you can convince the Raiders to give you Michael Mayer. All of those things just it takes the pressure off of finding a legitimate pass catching tight end in the draft. And then you've pointed this out a couple of previous times. Tight end is such a risky business. There is no guarantee that you take a tight end and they completely hit the ground running. I think Colson Loveland would be a very safe bet because the Chargers know him extremely well and he's a perfect fit. But even if you are a huge fan of Mason Taylor and you draft him, there's a chance that he doesn't really play a ton because he can't get on the field ahead of Will Dissly. Like, I know people like him, but there is that chance. So I just would caution fans who want them to find the next long-term tight end, and I do as well, but it's such a difficult position to hit right away. It has to be a great, perfect fit. And really, to me, I think Colston Loveland is probably the only one who I think definitively would start and get targets over Will Dissly.
Yeah. No,
and Tyler Warren, obviously, but Warren is going to be long gone.
Right. I mean, I don't know what it is for 500 receiving yards, but for 550 or more, only 7 players the last 10 drafts in year one have had over 550. I think it's like 8 or 9 for over 500 receiving yards. So basically, like anything more than Will Dissly can likely produce. And that's just, it's unlikely. And okay, so anybody in the chat, who's going to get over 500 yards? Who are you betting on? Okay, it's probably Warren or Loveland or both, which basically means nobody else really is. Statistically, it's unlikely a second player in this class is even going to get over 500, let alone a third. So, yeah, I would love for them to sign a tight end at this point or trade for a tight end, but that option is not available currently, at least one that I think that would have that kind of chance. So is Elijah Arroyo, let's say it is at 55, is that a good long-term option? Could Arroyo be that guy in a few years? Okay, yeah, sure. He could have over 500 yards next year.
Yeah.
Do the Chargers have that time right now? Or does it not matter to them? Does it not matter to them because they went, hey, Will Dissly actually worked out pretty good. So we'll go, he can have 400 yards. We just need some other receiving tight end to have 350 yards. And we call it a day.
Yeah.
Is that good enough for them? Maybe. But again, as you go back to the original point, which you wrote on here, like Mark Andrews, Vernon Davis, granted, there is no Mark Andrews and Vernon Davis immediately available in the draft. But those guys have had leaned into those guys so much. I wish there were a more definitive, easy option for Greg Roman right now.
Yeah. This is a deep tight end class, but it's not like a super top heavy class, in my opinion, like some people make it out to be. The Chargers, if they had taken advantage of the tight end class back in 2023, Yes, 2023. They had options at every single spot there. I think the Chargers are in a spot in the draft order where if they want one of these guys, they're probably going to have to trade up and go get them, which I'm not necessarily opposed to if the value is right and if the Chargers can, convince them to pick swap as opposed to give a pick outright. But if the Chargers stick and pick and Warren and Colston Loveland are off the board, I think my preferred option here is probably the round 3 guys, round 4 guys. The Harold Fannin conversation has been crazy. Like there was people were talking about him as a first round pick to start the cycle. And then it was like, oh, maybe top 40.
Yeah.
He's 95th on the Athletics consensus board. So if he's your 3rd round pick, I'm okay with that. I'm not like a huge Harold Fannin fan, but if you're picking him in the 3rd round instead of the 2nd round, I think that can bring you some value. I do see that there's like a potential correlation between him and like Isaiah Likely. I think they're pretty similar stylistically. I think athletically as well, they're pretty similar. I'm a fan of Terrence Ferguson at the right price. I think some Chargers fans want him at pick 54, which I think is objectively crazy. But in the 3rd round, I'm a fan of that selection. If he falls to the 4th round, that's cool with me. I watched Jalen Conyers last night. I think is a solid option in the 4th round. He's had some medical things like that, but the athleticism is definitely, eye-popping. Like we've done in the past, like if you miss out on so-and-so, look for so-and-so shows. To me, Conyers is if you miss out on Elijah Arroyo, you take him in the 4th round. Yeah. And so I think if the Chargers miss out on the top 2, I think you're looking at a round 3 or round 4 option, and you're betting on an athletic trait more so than anything else. Like Gunnar Helm is probably better than these other guys right now. And I don't think he's quite as poor of an athlete as his testing showed when he had a sprained ankle. But I question the ceiling there. But he does have some things that would present, I think, really well in this offense. But to me, that's where I'm looking. I'm looking at third, fourth round if you can't get Colston Loveland, and I'm taking kind of a dart throw, and then I know fans won't like it, but you at least know that Will Dissly can function in this offense and give you a high floor. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with the tight end position. If you miss out on the top two, don't take one in round 2. Focus on a different need, and then you're waiting until round 3, round 4.
Yeah, round 2 for tight end I'm not a fan of, to be completely honest. There's too many question marks with basically all of them where I feel comfortable taking one of those guys at 55. It'll be unlikely that I like one of these tight ends more than one of the defensive tackles that are there.
Right.
One of the edge rushers that are there, one of the corners that are there, one of the receivers that are there, where I just feel better about those and their needs for the Chargers. So it's unlikely I will like one of those tight ends more than what's available at 55. So to me, I do agree with you. That round 3-4 spot is where there is something intriguing there. I think if you want a true pass catching option, you've got to take him there, because after that, I do not believe you find an option who can really give you anything, nor would you expect a tight end in round 5 or 6 to suddenly walk in and give you 500.
Yeah.
So I do think that round 3-4 spot is shaping up to be where I'll go pretty often in mock drafts.
Yeah, I agree. So basically pray for a Colston Loveland fall, everybody.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. Just every year we ask for one bong mask video, and Colston Loveland make it happen, buddy.
Yeah. Maybe teams overthink the shoulder injury. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on this list, we do have vertical wide receiver. So we have pass catchers in our top 2 needs. So we are on the same page as fans there as it pertains to the draft. So Mike Williams, who the Chargers had a hilarious video of him visiting the Bolt for the first time. If you haven't watched it on YouTube yet, you should definitely go do that. Great to have Mike Williams' energy back in the room. He will be replacing Simi Fehoko and DJ Chark at the X position, who combined for a whopping 147 yards. No shade, love Simi. No elevators forever. All that good stuff. Wish him well in Arizona. But the Chargers basically got nothing from the X receiver spot. I think Mike Williams will be able to give them more than 147 yards. But they still have to replace Joshua Palmer, who, despite what some fans feel about him, was very productive for this team. And his departure, vacates 63 targets, 39 receptions, 584 yards. There were 4 or 5 times throughout the season where Justin and him just were not able to get on the same page. So that easily could have been more production. So it's a significant loss. I think you're trying to upgrade that specific spot as opposed to your X spot that you now have with Mike Williams. So what are the Chargers' options? Daniel Jeremiah thinks that Tetairoa McMillan is going to be there. I did not include him because I don't think he should be there. I think he should be a top 10 player. But, maybe if Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper are thinking that he's going to fall, I probably should have included him. But for the purposes of this exercise, I did not. So round 1, you're talking about Matthew Golden, who the Athletics consensus board has at 23rd, Emeka Egbuka at 28th. Round 2, you're talking about Jaden Higgins, who the Athletic has at 56th, Jack Betch at 66th, Trey Harris at 68th, Jalen Royals at 72nd. And then round 3, a little bit kind of jumbled here with this particular group. You could bucket them in round 2 if you really wanted to. Elic Ayuminor, pictured here on the screen. Jalen Knoll. I've learned that it is not Noel, it is Knoll. So I apologize there. So Jalen Knoll at 76th. And then Isaiah Bond at 89th. Again, there's kind of a jumble here with that group, starting with Trey Harris all the way down to Isaiah Bond. A lot of people have them all, mix and match here. There are some X receivers in this group who could provide you some Z flexibility. But I think with the way that you think of this room, you're trying to get a different type of body in here. And so I think any of these players from a verticality perspective would fit what the Chargers are lacking in the current room.
Yeah, I completely agree. Some of these guys will play in the slot or can play in the slot, but for the most part, this is not like a slot specific group, maybe more of a Z group or something different than that, but not there's no like Restrepo on here, for example, who is going to be a 5'10" slot receiver, which is fine. It's just not what the Chargers are looking for right now. So I do like this group overall. I am feeling the 1-2 of offense, defense, or defense, offense in the first couple of rounds.
Sure.
And it does feel like, I think you and I have mentioned it a billion times, that the round 2 does feel like a pretty good spot for that. I feel more, or at least as desperate to get one of these receivers in the first 3 rounds, maybe 4th round, as I do tight end, because as I said, I've sorted through a good amount of not so great at receiver. And there are intriguing options with athletic potential who, if they go to the right coordinator and play caller, could be something interesting if they manage to crack the starting lineup. But this is really a rough receiver group, I think, after a certain point. Overall, it's not a good one. Again, like McMillan is receiver 1 potentially, and falling to 22. Golden could be here. Igbokwe could be there. Burden, is he a first-round pick? So I think the Chargers got to get themselves a receiver pretty early. I'm feeling the first 2 rounds. Round 2 feels pretty nice, although again, it's back to the defensive tackle, defender overall debate. But yeah, after, and maybe more so than tight end, I feel the need for them to add a legit option at receiver and not wait for someone. You might like these players, but like you can't wait for day 3 Elijah Badger or Andrew Armstrong or one of these guys, or Williams from not San Jose State. Where's he from? Washington State.
Yeah.
Who is fun. I did watch him, and he actually is pretty solid. Like, he stood out above the stuff I did not love watching, which is a compliment, I promise. So
yeah. If they had signed like Devontae Adams, then yes, you can wait for that particular group, right? But like with this current room, Mike Williams is on a 1-year contract, and maybe that becomes, a longer term thing. If his ACL, recovery goes really well, maybe the Chargers decide to bring him back. He still is just 30 years old. So maybe he can give you, 2 more years of good football if things go properly for him. But there's some questions about particular players here in the chat. We're looking for a very specific type here. And we're only going to round 3 because we're talking about like the primary needs. Day 3, can you find value? Can you find starters? Yes, but we're trying to find starting caliber players for this team, which is traditionally found in rounds 1 through 3. These are players who, at minimum, can offer you some outside flexibility. So somebody like Tez Johnson, who people are asking about, his film is really, really fun, but he is going to be very specific scheme fit. That's going to be in the slot. You're going to design him yards after catch opportunities, gadget opportunities. The Chargers don't really need that kind of player. They need somebody who can go win vertically with speed and can also do other things. It's like Jalen Royals, to me, is a good choice here because he can play Z, he can play in the slot, he can win vertically, he can win intermediately. That's kind of the stuff that we're talking about. Trey Harris, I included, but he probably is more of a like traditional X. But I do think he could give you some Z kind of flexibility. He is fast. He's not super fast. But that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Somebody with speed who can provide the vertical stretch that this team needs. So in an ideal world for me, you have Mike Williams as your X, your boundary receiver, your jump ball guy, your red zone guy. You have Ladd, who is your go-to receiver, who does most of his work from the intermediate perspective. You're talking about all of those overs, those slants, those posts, things like that we know that they want to get Ladd the football to. Your option routes. You have Quentin Johnson, who is your horizontal stretch guy. That's his best role. Mm-hmm. Slants, drags, mesh, jet sweeps, all that kind of stuff. They're missing a vertical speed threat. And, if a great player falls to them, should this existing room deter them from taking a Teteroa McMillan? No, absolutely not. But if he is long gone, you're looking for a speed kind of threat. And I think that's why we have this particular group here listed as opposed to some of the other guys. There's the other TCU receiver, Savion Williams. No, thank you. He is 225-pound version of Quentin Johnston, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, every game I watched of his, granted, I only watched 3. He had a drop, and it was like a oh god drop.
Yeah.
It was one of those drops, and they would rather run him. They ran him about 61 times last year as a rusher, as a wildcat rusher last year. They'd rather do that than find a way to throw him the football down the field. Now, that could be the offense, that could be the quarterback, but yeah, watching him and just watching some of the absolute brick hands, that was pretty rough. And then the numbers back that one up too.
Yeah. Savion Williams is like heavier version of Laviska Shenault. You know, if you're going to draft,
they add to the roster,
who the Chargers did have, and I think is in New England now. Anyways, but if you're going to draft Savion Williams, you're going to have a very specific role for him, and what he does, a lot of Quentin Johnson is going to be doing for this team. So,
yeah,
not a great fit for me.
Yeah, for what it's worth, he has like a 90% contested catch rate that he's great at, but it's like the wide open. Like there's what game was it? Wide open for a 70-yard touchdown and just doink, like no coverage around him, off his hands. Bad.
Texas Tech
might have been, and I could open my notes, but it would crash my stream.
Yeah. So yeah, there are some other day 3 receivers. You know, Ricky White out of UNLV, I liked, but he ran a 4.6 140, so not crazy about that. Kyle Williams is my guy late. There's Dante Thornton from Tennessee, who is extremely fast and extremely tall.
Yes, he is.
And some other guys like that. So to me, round 2 is the sweet spot. Like I think round 2 is really where you're looking at a wide receiver option for this team again. Maybe Jaden Higgins is gone, but I think I feel really good about their chances of finding a quality receiver in round 2, you know, and the Chargers can go from there.
Yeah.
All right, next one here, we have number 2 running back.
Yes. So right now with J.K. Dobbins TBD, I don't think he'll be back, but they're not exactly paying, you know, Najee a ton. So maybe we'll see. But last year, this year, J.K. Dobbins is your free agent. Gus Edwards was cut. And right now you have Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, who combined for 249 yards on 78 attempts, which is good for a whopping 3.1 yards per attempt, which isn't great. I think the yards per attempt is under at least the number of fumbles that they had in certain key situations. Was not great. Najee Harris is on a 1-year deal. So not only do they need a number 2 running back, they might need someone long-term as well. They should get someone long-term. I don't think that's Vidal. I like Haskins' role, but he's not a long-term option either. So the options are Genty, who won't be there, or Amarion Hampton at 30th. He's 30th on the consensus ranking.
Dude, when I saw Ashton Genty was 3rd on their list, I was like, whoa, all right.
Yeah, he's going to the Raiders. So I think we could basically kiss that one goodbye. Enjoy that one, Pete Carroll. But yeah, running back no longer feels like a true option at 22, but it's not impossible with Hampton. I don't think that's Caleb Johnson anymore. I think Alex shared a former mock draft that had Bashal Tutin at 22.
Yeah, it was CBS Sports. Yep.
Yeah, that was something. Anyway, round 2 options: Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson. I like 25% of that list. Then round 3, you get your Cam Skadaboo, Devin Neal, Bashal Tutin, DJ Giddens, and Damian Martinez, who was further down than these guys, but a name that you continued to pound the table for, who I really like as well. So it just kind of depends on your flavor here. Do you want someone who's like Najee Harris? Do you want someone completely different? Are you looking for more of a pass catcher? They're not doing that, by the way, because Greg Roman forgets that you can throw it at running back sometimes. But everyone's saying, okay, Najee Harris is your Gus Edwards replacement. Najee Harris is your Gus Edwards replacement. Like, you're not going to get an explosive run out of him. You're going to get 4 yards, 4.2 yards, 3.9 yards, and like it. But that's going to be your rushing attack, the bulk of it. I think the Chargers need to find the lightning version of their running back. They have someone who's going to do the heavy workload stuff. They need what was the best part of their offense last year in terms of the rushing game. They're J.K. Dobbins. Now they could go sign J.K. Dobbins, or you could find someone in the draft. So to me, I would prefer a more of a lightning, quicker home run runner here. So I don't think that's like a Damian Martinez, but having him in the roster, the rotation, wouldn't mind at all.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the Chargers need some speed here, and that could be Kamani Vidal if he makes a leap here. So I'm very curious how the Chargers kind of take his development into consideration here. If he is somebody who they think can take a year or 2 leap, maybe this is a group where they can wait until, you know, round 4, round 5. And this list of running backs is so deep this year. It's crazy. RJ Harvey is not on this list. Both of us really like him. Jordan James from Oregon, I really like him, although he's much more similar to Najee Harris. This running back class will give the Chargers a lot of opportunity to go find value. And if they do think Kamani can take that leap, it just obviously would alleviate so much pressure from drafting one early. But the Najee deal, it's great for the short term. We're fans of it, but it does lend itself towards this team potentially having to take a running back that they can think could become a RB1 of the future. So there's a lot of layers here where I don't think they have to take one running back kind of stylistically because of that 1 year kind of contract. But I do think that they will need somebody who can hit the home run. Calvin now bringing up Devin Neal. That's another one I'm a big fan of his. I was surprised he was not on that. Or wait, is he? Yeah. No, he's on the list. Yeah, he's a round 3 option for the Athletic at 99 overall. So he would be a good option. Cam Scatterboo's not a home run hitter in the NFL, but that man screams Jim Harbaugh to me. I don't think he is slow, but just the toughness, the physicality that he brings. I watched him play Utah several times, and he was always a pain in the ass to tackle. I think against Utah this particular year, he broke like 14 tackles in that game. So he is a tremendously difficult person to bring down. But I'm on the same page as you. I would like to see them get some speed. I would like to see them, if Trayvon Henderson is there in round 2, he'd be very difficult for me to pass up. I really like DJ Giddens. I really like Devin Neal. So they have some good options here, depending on style fit and depending on how they feel about Kamani Vidal's future.
Yeah, so it's a really good group. People are mentioning names. I have to get to all of them. A lot of good running backs in this group, and I'd be open for most of them for different reasons. I do like Henderson in the second round too, but I like a tight end, or I don't like a tight end. I like a defensive tackle in the second round, like a receiver in the second round. So yeah,
that's gonna be a tough one to pass on if he is there. But some people think he so this running back class, they could have a lot of people think there could be 4 running backs who go in the first round. And
right.
There's been some connect. So a lot of people think the Cowboys are looking at a potential running back in round 1, and there's a buzz between them and Amari and Hampton. They think Trayvon Henderson could sneak into the first round. People think Caleb Johnson could sneak into the first round, which I think is crazy. But this is a really, really good running back class where the Chargers could get some value late, or they could, if they want like a true future number 1, they could do that, in the first 3 rounds for sure.
Yeah, I'll say 3 running backs
in the first round.
Yeah, I think Henderson sneaks.
I think he should. I know that he's not like a super like yards after contact guy, like on a carry to carry basis, but the home run speed is there. He can catch the heck out of the ball. He can pass protect. Like to me, is the best pass protecting running back in this class. And that is really like such a valuable asset for these teams who want a 3-down running back. So if you have Henderson as your 1, you do probably need like a grinder to kind of balance it out with him. But I do agree he should go round 1.
Yeah.
Next one here, we'll zoom through a couple of these. We talked a lot about offensive linemen today, but left guard obviously is a need. A lot of offense in the draft show going forward. Zion Johnson, currently penciled in as the starting left guard, had the worst pass blocking efficiency rating of his career, which is not great. He technically could have his 5th-year option picked up, but I would be very surprised. So he is going to be a free agent after the season. I would assume that is the path that this team is going to take. Jamari Sawyer, I think, has just kind of settled into a backup role. He was definitely exposed versus the Houston Texans, had a very poor showing. And he's really played left tackle and right guard. Those have been his 2 main positions in the NFL. He's never played at left guard in his NFL career. And then Trey Pipkins also never played left guard in his career and definitely struggled along the interior. So the Chargers, I think, need a starting left guard, whether that's this year or next year. It's probably going to happen. So round 1, guys, you have Tyler Booker and Gray Zabel, who the Athletic has at 29th and 34th. Round 2, Donovan Jackson. He's at 35, but I do think he probably should sneak into round 1 because he could also play tackle for some teams. And then Jonah Savainea, from Arizona. I'm a big fan of his tape, who I think would be a great selection for the Chargers to play potentially guard. It gives you some tackle flexibility as well. And then round 3, you have Tate Ratledge, who I love, Wyatt Millum, who I'm a big fan of as well, 86 overall. Tate Ratledge is 83rd. And then Miles Frazier has been climbing up the mock draft database board steadily since the combine. He's at 123 there. He's not ranked on the athletic board, but he is an option as well.
I've watched 2 of these names. Rivers is not on here. I don't think you go after someone with that much of an injury risk. And I think he was a right guard. Is he a left guard? Or he was a tackle. Sorry. Booker, I don't think guard at 22 is really an option at this point, unless they absolutely just want to demote Zion, which is possible. We'll see. But I think it's mostly out on 22 at this point. I'm looking. It's funny. Oh, I'm looking for like a round 3-4 option. Okay, you only have so many options, only so many draft picks in this class.
Yeah,
but I like the find other guard to compete with Zion. If it's round 1, that's not really a competition. You're just starting that player. So I think like round 4, round 5 kind of feels like where they're going to end up going with left guard unless they have an opportunity they can't pass up. So we don't have all the like round 4 through 7 guys on here. That'd be too big of a list, or if we watched everybody. So yeah, I think they address it. It's obviously James is going to play center. It feels like slightly less of a need now because there's not really, in my opinion, that flexibility that Zion's going to even really give center much of a try. So I think he's kind of locked in there. But they do need their future option because, I mean, they could have next year no James, no Sawyer, no Zion. So they should have another option waiting in the wings.
Yeah, and Mekhi Becton's only on a 2-year deal. So you need a long-term asset at guard who can start. Obviously, Rashawn Slater is going to be very expensive going forward, although this upcoming year his cap hit will be cheap. So this is a position where they probably need to address in the first 3-4 rounds. Right now, because of the Andre James signing, I think this position could potentially go down a little bit. But right now, with just Zion as a potential option at left guard, like you probably got to address this position in some way. So I think for me, round 3 is probably the sweet spot for this room. Like there are some other guards on this in this class that we haven't mentioned. Joshua Gray, who Fitness brings up, he's a good option who I have watched. I have not watched Jackson Slater, the one from Sacramento State, but there's a lot of big fans of his around the league. The one from Jacksonville State, they will not be taking, I would assume, given his history of character issues. But that round 3 range does feel kind of like the sweet spot for guards for me. Maybe Jonas Sabainea goes a little bit earlier because some teams might view him as a tackle. Same thing with Donovan Jackson. So the guard situation is pretty similar to how they might be just missing at tight end. The same thing could be applicable here. Like Donovan Jackson and Sabainea could go well before pick 55 because they have that tackle flexibility. And then Tyler Booker and Gray Zabel, you mentioned earlier, Zabel could be gone before pick 22 because a lot of people have him as that top interior option. So guard, to me, it does feel like round 3, round 4 is probably where I feel like is the sweet spot for this particular team. A lot of people bringing up Marcus Mbao. He's another one who he's played. I think Marcus Mbao can play tackle, man. Like that guy can move. He can anchor. I think he's a tackle. But if he's not a tackle, he is tailor-made for a like Shanahan type of system at guard or center. Is he an option for this particular offense? I don't really know. And that's why I didn't put him. But to me, he's probably like a round 2 player. So if they took him in round 2, I would not be opposed. But he's probably more of a zone Miami, San Francisco, Green Bay kind of guard as opposed to what the Chargers are looking for from a size and power standpoint.
So since you've done more homework on this interior group, assuming generally all the assumed guys are going to be there in round 3, would you lean more guard at this point or just interior guy or tight end?
Oh man. I think you can find better guards in rounds 4 and 5 than you can tight ends. So
Yeah.
I guess depending on who is on the board, right? Obviously, but like if you're asking me to take Tate Ratledge or Terrence Ferguson, I'm gonna take Tate Ratledge.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about like Frazier and Jackson Slater and those guys, I would take Ferguson.
Mhm.
So I think it's easier to find quality guards later than it will be tight
Yeah.
ends in this particular class. So I would, in a vacuum, I would probably say tight end.
Yeah. I'm unsure if the Chargers can find and get a guard in round 3 who can outperform Zion.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure they can find a tight end in round 3 who can outperform Tucker Fisk
And Stone Smart.
and Stone Smart, who's no longer on the roster.
Yeah. Like tight end is difficult, right? But if you drafted Terrence Ferguson, I think you could easily see a world where he gives you 350 yards ish and call it a good rookie season. And then maybe year 2, he becomes the guy. But yeah, guard is a little tricky, man. This regime could definitely take Tyler Booker at 22, and I would not be surprised at all. But to me, the sweet spot is that round 3, round 4 range.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now for another very clear need, which is defensive tackle. Still very sad about Poona Ford being a Los Angeles Ram, given that contract. But Morgan Fox quietly getting an $8 million deal in Atlanta. He was obviously the Chargers' best pass rusher for the last few years. So pass rushing defensive tackle in particular is definitely a need. Tier Tart, currently their best pass rusher in this group with 18 pressures last season, who I think is a fun player. But the Chargers have some options here. And I think part of the reason why we have them lower is because Mike Elston fucking rocks as a coach. Like he is a great positional coach and can get the most out of that particular room. So this is a group that the Chargers could very easily take from at 22. But if they decide to wait, I trust Mike Elston to get the most out of this, whoever they take. So round 1, it is kind of a sweet spot for where they might be picking and looking at, because you have Walter Nolan from Ole Miss at 21st overall in the Athletics consensus ranking. You have Kenneth Grant at 25th, Derek Harmon at 27th. I think all of those guys would be good picks at 22 and again, fit their range here. Round 2, you have Tyleik Williams at 40th from Ohio State, TJ Sanders at 50th from South Carolina, Alfred Collins, who Mike Elston heavily recruited from Texas, at 53rd. You have Darius Alexander at 55th. You have Joshua Farmer from Florida State, who just played the last few seasons for the Chargers safeties coach, at 59th. You have Shamar Turner from Texas A&M at 62nd. I feel like this list could go on and on and on. Omar Norman Lott at 71st, Deion Walker at 78th, Jordan Phillips at 92nd. This group is so good. There are options at every single, wherever the Chargers are picking.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable that they can come away from this draft class with a potential starting defensive tackle, because like I said, I could have put 4 or 5 other names on this list. And this is easily the longest list of this exercise. So the Chargers are in great shape wherever they want to find a defensive tackle. I think they can find one and feel comfortable about the long-term potential of that piece that they are going to target.
Yeah, very curious to see how they decide to play this, because they definitely need a pass rushing option. It's not a demand that they get it, because they did get good defensive line play out of Ford and Tart last year, but they don't have a pass rusher. As you said, I'd like to see them invest early here and then circle back around. You can do it in round 3 for all I care. You can take another one of these guys. That'd be fine with me. If you happen to get Kenneth Grant at 22 and you're like, all right, well, we got the best player available, but we do kind of need more of a twitchier pass rusher. Great. Go get that guy in round 3, round 4, round 5, round 6, whatever. So I definitely wouldn't mind that at all. I'm looking more for a pass rusher here. There's a lot of really big defensive tackles who can rush the passer. I think that's kind of where they might end up going. Farmer feels like it, but man, those round 2 names like Collins, like Sanders, Farmer, and you could see some of these guys sneaking into round 2 anyway. Norman Lott potentially, because he's an absolute freak of nature. Deion Walker, I guess, played all of last year with a broken back.
Dude, when I saw that, I was that's insane to me that you would even consider playing through that. But credit to him for some toughness, man.
Yeah, like 70 snaps a game, basically never coming off the field with a broken back at 370 or whatever he was last year, 360. Can't do that. I'll tell you that right now. Good for him. So that is a there every day, Ted Harbaugh kind of thing if they want to explore that route for sure. So respect him there, but yeah, they got to get a defensive tackle, and this is the class to do it. At this point, I would be disappointed if they don't take 2 defensive tackles.
Yeah, because they don't really have. I mean, they don't really have long-term options, right? Like Tier Tart's on a 1-year deal, Hands on a 1-year deal. Otito Ogboni's a free agent after this season. Naquan Jones is a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
I guess technically Justin Eboigbe is going to be around a while, but you got nothing from him, from this season. So I just, with the way that the Chargers season went last year, I just would have loved to have like a true like interior pass rusher type. And right now that is those other guys can all play certain roles. They don't really have a starting pass rusher defensive tackle type because obviously Morgan Fox is gone. You shouldn't trust Justin Eboigbe to do that right away. So if you're sitting there at 22, man, and the tight ends are gone, I think defensive tackle makes a ton of sense for where the Chargers are at. And I know that you can look at the defensive tackle class 2 of own ways. Maybe I want to get the best guy, or I want to wait because I know I can get some value later. I kind of would love to get the best guy. And if that's Derek Harmon for you or Walter Nolan, I get it. If it's Kenneth Grant, I get it. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Kenneth Grant. But you drop one of those 3 guys into this defensive line room with Mike Elston, they'll have at least 1 year to learn from Khalil Mack in terms of like being a pro, obviously different positions, but you'll have a year to soak up that knowledge that Khalil Mack can bring to you. And it just would alleviate some attention from the edge rushers if you can have a true difference maker on the interior. So the more that I have gone through this class, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of taking one of these guys at 22, or maybe you trade down if you want, and then you can go get your other positions elsewhere in the 2nd and 3rd round, because there's so many good options, but I just really, really want a true difference maker in the middle for the Chargers going forward.
Yeah, and we don't have corner on here. Obviously, we could have gone through several positions. It's cut for time. We're already at 73 minutes on this live stream. Granted, we spent the first 10 just thanking you guys. But I would like for them to get an interior pass rusher, obviously edge too, but interior pass rusher to make the secondary decisions right. Because right now it's a bunch of young guys and veterans who you want to get the most out of that surplus value. And sure, great pass rush always helps your secondary, should help your secondary. But in this case, with so many young guys, unproven guys, and just with the nature of how some of these guys play, like more pass rush, way better for Tarheeb still. More pass rush, great for Derwin James, Elijah Molden. I think that even people don't like Alohi Gilman these days, but like he is a ball hawk. He's a ball magnet, I should say. Yeah, I think that helps him. So yeah, getting more interior pressure would be awesome. And ask the Chiefs how that went. Granted, Milton Williams isn't going to walk through the door right now, but they can find a couple of guys who'll be pretty good early on.
Yeah. How do you have you watched Nolan and Harmon?
Yes. She asked me how I have them ranked. Hold on.
Yeah.
Because it is really close for me, so I actually don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I believe if you're betting, so I have Harmon over Nolan, but I think Nolan is the bet you want to maybe take.
Yeah. So Nolan was the #1 overall recruit of his class. Like he's been so highly touted, and his physical traits are outrageously high. There's nothing definitive, like he's not a criminal, right? Like there's no things like that in his background, but there's just some questions about like, does he truly love football from what I understand? Whereas Derek Harmon, that's not really the case. Derek Harmon to me strikes me as more of like their size type though. Like Nolan is probably a little light for them. But Harmon, I think would check that box for them.
Yeah. No, you drop Harmon into this group and fucking, hey man, you might get your hands down, Jorge. I really like him. He's not like my favorite player I've ever watched, but I do really, really like him.
Yeah, and you could get your pass rusher in the first round, and then you mentioned, double dip and get, your run stuffing defensive tackle type in like round 4, round 5, or whatever. Like, dude, I watched Thor Griffith from Louisville, and who's like a consensus like 350th on the board. I was like talking myself into him, man. Like
Yeah.
this defensive tackle group it just keeps going, man. Like usually in the past years, you get like 1 or 2 guys in the top 50, maybe. And then there's like 1 or 2 guys in the top 100, maybe. This year, this group is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top 50, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 who are in the top 100. Like this class absolutely rules. And this doesn't even have Mason Graham on here, who's going to be long gone too. So.
Right. Yeah.
Love this group.
Good group, man.
All right. Great discussion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Again, like Tyler mentioned, we didn't really talk about edge. We didn't talk about corner. Obviously, we didn't talk about linebacker, which I feel like is kind of, locked up these days with how they have positioned it. So this is, to me, the most important 5 rankings in terms of their draft needs. And we'll see how the Chargers are going to attack this draft, man. I can't wait. Okay, we have 19 super chats.
Let it rip.
Dark Same is kicking us off back in the chat here. Does James Bean know Jared Wilson dream is gone? I don't think that dream was ever truly alive, as I've said, but I appreciate the bit, and then thank you for the super chat as always.
Yes, I think the dream, if it were ever a dream, it is gone.
Yeah. Gary Rockwell says, ideally we could get an edge and interior defensive lineman in the draft. But assuming only one was available in either the first or second round, which position would you prioritize? I think now you know our answer there, which is defensive tackle.
Yeah, in either the first or second round. Yeah, in interior at this point with the way their roster is.
Yeah. Our guy Fabio back in here says, hey, either one of you coming to Brazil for the game? I'd love to show Sao Paulo to you guys.
TBD. It'd be nice, but that turnaround at the beginning of the school year is just... it'll be rough.
Yeah, beginning of the school year makes it tough. Brooke and I are also going to London in a few weeks, actually. So
sweet. That's right.
That is our expensive trip for the year, which will make going to Brazil like non-starter, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
But thank you, Fabio. If anybody in here is going to the game, now you know that Fabio is your guy to contact, and hopefully you guys can get in touch with him. Noah says, I was manifesting in the Discord and it worked. We appreciate that. Noah's a very active member in our Discord, and we appreciate all of his comments. And yeah, there was a lot of Andre James fans in the Discord, which I was happy to see.
Yeah, it's it's fun, the Discord. Their name is changed every time to like Mark Andrews fan or something fan, or I forget who it is, but they keep changing their name to the player that they want.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Maybe you had Andre James fan today. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Daddy Don't Pull Out says, just know I watch these streams the morning after my drive to work. Love y'all. Thank you, Daddy Don't Pull Out. We appreciate you as well.
Thank you, Daddy Don't Pull Out.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man says, a question for Tyler and Steven. If you two were to manage a football team, who would be the GM and who would be the head coach?
Steven's definitely the coach. And I'm hiring Arjun.
Oh, between like the two of us. I thought he was asking about like, okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, you coach gymnastics. You can rally the troops.
Oh, listen, I could be a leader, but I can't coach the game of football. You've helped with flag football or something.
I've done flag football. I've coached middle school football. I've coached high school football. I've never been a head coach, but I have coached the sport. My favorite football coaching thing I've ever done, I coached middle school football when we moved here to California, and I was the offensive coordinator. And it was so much fun. I got to call plays for the first time in my life and like make plans for how I wanted to run an offense. It was super cool. We had our specific team had run the triple option for like the years previously, and I convinced the head coach to let me like run more of a passing offense. And our quarterback was really good. He actually is, he's just finished up his junior season, and I think he does have some D1 offers. So that's been fun to see as well.
There you go. I could like Ted Lasso this thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know, but we're gonna.
You could hire other coaches to do. You could be a CEO type of head coach.
Yeah. I don't know. I could blindfold myself and maybe call a better defense than Brandon Staley.
There you go. Joe Alexander says, never freaking doubt the fact our floor is still being raised by Joe and leaving the draft to raise the ceiling is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and bolt the F up.
Absolutely. Floor continues to rise, which is good. The draft, a lot of fun ceiling players.
Yeah, 100%. Brian Stowe says, why did we not sign Azeez Ojulari? I'm surprised nobody signed Azeez Ojulari for more than what the Eagles were offering him.
Mm-hmm.
So very strange, kind of calendar year for Azeez where he was potentially getting shopped for like a 3rd round pick. Giants said no. They decided to keep him and then not bring him back. So that's fun for the Giants. But yeah, I'm surprised nobody signed him to more than that.
I love when owners won't trade their players, even though everything stinks and there's offers and they won't do it. Panthers, Cowboys,
yes.
But continue doing that for your team, I guess.
Yeah. Bad teams stay bad for a reason. Putz and Bolt says, does scheme fit impact tackle, guard, or center more? All about the same. Also, Steven, what's your handicap? Golf question. All right. I would say scheme fit most impacts a tackle or a center. A lot of the guard responsibilities in zone or gap are pretty similar. You still have a lot of reach blocks, you still have a lot of double teams, but because of the nature of like zone running schemes, tackle and center can change responsibilities dramatically. Whereas guard, you're probably a little bit more similar, but center specifically, if you're very limited center scheme, it's very difficult for you to go back and forth. Whereas the other positions, you can probably manage it a little bit more.
I agree. What's your handicap in golf? People were asking.
My handicap in golf is not great, but generally speaking, I can go hit like a 90 to 95. I don't golf a ton. I'm like twice a month, but that's kind of my range. There was one day last fall where I got an 88 and it was like amazing. I had like the best day on the course ever. So for me anyways.
Yeah. I'll do a handstand if Steven gets us 87. How about that?
There you go. Cassius Camoni? Cassius C Money? Cassius C Money seems more like that one. He wants to know, is it possible we don't see Rashawn's extension before the start of the season? Could they be waiting for other tackle contracts to compare deals?
Well, Darrisaw has his and Sewell has his, right? And
Correct.
Wirfs has his. So I think that's it.
The market is pretty set.
Yeah, market seems pretty set. So I think they'll get it done.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stress about this deal getting done. And I get it, there are these other contracts that are happening, but the Chargers are a July extension team. Like, it's just kind of how it's always been. This deal will get done before the season starts. I like the Chargers. They have no reason not to do this. He just had the best season of his career. They're an offensive line team. The deal will get done. You guys don't need to stress about it, but it's probably a July thing.
Yeah, we'll get it done. Or I can make a thumbnail if you need it.
Yeah, there you go. Matt says, wish Rivers could have had a line like this. Yeah, I get it. Although the early line was great, and then Hardwick and
Dealman
was Hardwick and Dealman aged very quickly. McNeil aged very quickly, and then you're dealing with like King Dunlap and Joe Barksdale at right tackle, and and then it was.
And that was the good line.
That was the good line. So he started with a great line, and then it was like okay, and then it was just like horrible. And like Russell Okung was good for a year, and like Mike Pouncey was good for a year, and that was like it.
Yeah, not great.
Nicholas says, I believe James is going to obliterate Bozeman. I think he is the starting center. Obliterate is probably a little bit of a stretch, but I love the energy.
Yes. Ultimately, he will be. I don't think he starts as is, unless we find something about the contract.
Yeah. CJH says that Daniel Jeremiah has T-Mac to the Bolts. Thoughts?
I guess I'll have to start watching McMillan tape. I've not been watching him because at the beginning of this process, he was a top 10 player. And now I have no idea where he's going.
Yeah, this has been a strange fall. And Daniel Jeremiah acknowledged in the thing that he could still go in the top 10. He's the best pure receiver in this class, most likely. But, this was like people initially were talking about like the Patriots at 4, Jaguars at 5, and now the more mock drafts come out, he's 18, 15, 22. So it's very interesting. There's probably something going on behind the scenes that publicly we don't know about, whether that's a health thing or character thing. Again, maybe he doesn't love football, all that stuff. But I don't know, man. If the Chargers take him at 22, I'll be very happy. But he should be long gone.
Yeah, I don't know. And if he is there at 22, maybe those things are all correct, and we should be worried.
Yeah, we'll see. Dark Samus says on the Grant, Loveland, and Golden train, no Jay Wilson.
He's off of the Jared Wilson train?
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, he's
Unless there's another Jay Wilson.
No Jay Wilson, huh?
Were you talking about Jared Wilson at pick 22? Because if you were, that's insane.
Well, he was talking about I'm guessing.
Grant and Loveland. To me, those two feel like the most likely picks at 22 right now.
Yeah, I would probably even feel that way if they weren't at Michigan.
Yeah. Gary says Egbuka, great speed and route runner. Why not?
Yeah, he might be the best player available by the time they get to that spot, so I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Egbuka's tape
rocks
as well.
Yeah,
I think he's comfortably ahead of Matthew Golden for me. And
yeah, me too.
Probably even Luther Burden.
Have not watched Burden. Again, now I have to, but
he's like a worse version of Lad.
Great.
So stylistically, like that's what you're getting,
So he's the UCLA slot receiver from a couple years ago.
UCLA slot receiver.
Someone in the chat's gonna have it. A couple years ago, runs routes really well, but is not the athletic phenom that Lad more so is.
Does somebody have it yet?
Phillips.
Kyle Phillips.
There you go. Is it like that?
No, not quite that. Kyle Phillips wasn't. Burden is athletic, but he's not as like technically refined as Lad. But similar speed profile, similar yak profile.
Okay.
Minus the routes.
Cool.
He's a good player, but he's not. Okay. He's not better than Lad.
Gotcha.
Teresa Crompapes says, "Who are your favorite fits for a backfield combo of 2 hammers and a lightning and thunder? Which one do you think is more likely to happen?"
Is this in the draft or with Najee? I guess I'm guessing with Najee.
I'm guessing in the draft with Najee.
Okay. I mean, Henderson's. It's just everything Henderson does is good. He's such a good player, and then he'll you watch some of the games, he'll just beat someone on a slant or beat someone on a quick out. Like he can do everything. And our first name that comes to mind is Giddens.
Yeah, I really like Giddens pairing with Najee.
Yeah.
I still really love the idea of taking Omarion Hampton. We'll see if he's even there at this point in time. Again, some mock drafters have him going top 15 at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a ton of great value in this running back class. So assuming Henderson is off the board, Giddens, round 2 probably is my favorite option there. Round 3 is probably Devin Neal. In terms of speed options there. I think Damian Martinez should be a round 3 player all day long. I don't understand what people are watching there. Day 3, you're probably talking about RJ Harvey. I
don't know where they're gonna have him because every data thing that comes out, he's he's incredible.
The data profile is insane.
It's insane. Number 1 EPA rusher, this, that, whatever. It's just he's smaller. He's 24. He has an ACL, 3,000 yards ago, 2 seasons ago, but that's on there. So I don't know what to make of Harvey.
Yeah, his range is kind of all over the place. Athir Kadir says, I know that it's called What Is Next Answer. What is next? Coach Harbaugh, tell his team AFC juggernaut, my butt. We are next. Let's get the ring.
Love the optimism.
Heck yeah, dude. I saw this tweet today that AI, the Grok thing, like predicted the next 20 Super Bowls or whatever. Unfortunately, the Chargers were not on this list, but they won it like twice in like the 2030s for whatever reason. Anyways, fun fact, I guess.
Cool. Podcasting then when I'm old and bald and whatever. We'll be there for that one. We'll fire up the podcast.
There you
YouTube
go.
Still exists.
Jamari Caldwell is a sneaky great pickup too, says CJH. Yeah, the Chargers could recreate the Oregon defensive line, and I would be okay with it. They could take Jordan Birch in round 3, and I think that would be cool as well. Dan Lanning did an awesome job, developing and creating that defensive line to what it was. It was a ton of fun to watch on tape. Yeah. All of their guys can play. Jamari Caldwell definitely shocked me with the pass rush juice that he has as a 330 nose tackle type. It was very Puna Ford-esque, where you're like, okay, was definitely not expecting that kind of thing to pop up, but fun player for sure.
Yeah, they coach defensive line very well over there, it seems.
Yeah. Jacob Arnold says the real question is, what will be the next thumbnail to manifest? LOL, thanks guys, BTFU.
Well, Chargers need a pass catching tight end, so I need something with Goddard. Chargers need pass catching tight end. I think they need I still think they got to get that done.
Yeah,
Chargers fans, it's the most no, not that guy I think I've ever seen Chargers fans be. People are being so picky when there's not beggars can't be choosers. There's not a lot of options there.
Yeah,
so I just go get Goddard, and if he gives you 400 receiving yards, guess what? That's probably better than anyone you can draft.
Yeah, 100%. I agree there. Veteran tight end definitely gets it done. Micah says, been a fan for years. Are there any players right now you'd be willing to trade up for? And if so, how far up would you go for them? So trading up in the draft is definitely a scenario that we will explore. But I'm not going further than pick 16-ish, because then that requires a really expensive trade up. And I still want the Chargers to have that second round pick. So trading up ahead of the Broncos is definitely something I'm monitoring, because the Broncos are having a lot of the same conversations we are having, which is Colston Loveland, running back, defensive tackle. All that kind of stuff is happening in Denver as well. So I'm definitely monitoring a trade up with the Broncos. To me, the Seahawks at 18, who are kind of trying to rebuild on the fly, that makes a lot of sense as a trade up partner. Bengals at 17, who are very expensive all of a sudden, they make sense as a trade up partner. So again, that's Hampton, Colston Loveland, Kenneth Grant. If you are not convinced he'll fall to you, those are kind of the guys that I'm trading up for.
Am I frozen?
No, I got you.
Hello. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not buying a trade up this year, but I agree that if you have to jump the potentially Steelers and Broncos,
yeah,
I'd get it. It's so interesting. The Chargers draft capital, the Chargers' entire draft capital this year is actually worth less than their first round pick last year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Picking at 5 versus 22 is very different.
Yep, 300 points difference almost there, which is almost an entire second round pick.
Dang. Good question from Micah. Good questions from all you guys. Finishing with a super sticker here from Patrick Omega, although I don't know if there was a actual question attached here, but it doesn't look like it. Okay, there we go. Tyler, any other final thoughts before we head out tonight?
manifesting another signing for you guys. I promise I'm not actually letting it go to my head. I don't actually believe we're doing that, but it is fun to reference. And if you want to send me a super chat and talk about it, that's fun too.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. Almost 1,000 in here tonight. 23 super chats. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun talking free agency and everything like that over the last couple of weeks. We will be back on Thursday for our next show. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time. Bolt up.